Welcome to a series of talks on marketing designed for students of IBS Gurgaon.
My name is Professor Mohammad Shariq, and today I have with me Professor Aziz. Both of us are faculty of strategy and marketing here at IBS Gurgaon, and we'll be having a conversation on marketing as a refresher for students, which allows them to kind of go back and look at the content that they have studied in the first year, which will help them in their interviews or placement process. So what we are going to do today is we will start off with the segmentation, targeting, differentiation and positioning, and positioning with 4 P's. So that's what the conversation is going to be about. The marketing strategy part fundamentally starts with the segmentation, targeting, differentiation and positioning. How does that work? So you have a population in India which is about 1.2 billion people, and your product or service cannot be for everybody for all time. You have to figure out who is your target market for the product and services that you have designed, and therefore you segment the market. So basically what does segmentation mean? Is you take the 1.2 billion people and then on various parameters that you can decide, and more importantly the psychographics. Using psychographics you segment your population into creating rich pictures of potential target markets. Once you have done that, once you have segmented the market, then you can decide who are you going to target within this. So we will just kind of complete this before we go into some examples. So once you have decided on your target market, then you need to figure out how you're going to position your product, because there are multiple products which are targeting the same consumer set that you have identified. So you have to figure out what are your points of differentiation and how you're going to position your product so that you are able to take a space in the consumer's mind, and then use the 4 P's to enhance your strategy and then generate the sales and volume that you plan to do. So I'll just hand it over to Professor Aziz now to talk about 4 P's, and then we can talk about some examples of what we have just talked.
So the 4 P's is essentially used to position a product. What do we mean by positioning? Positioning includes both installing an idea about the product in the mind of the consumer, and also physically making it sure that the product is available in the market when a consumer is ready to spend his hard-earned money. So positioning is both a physical and a mental activity. So when we say how do we position using the 4 P's, first of all we have to start with the first P, which is the product. So the product has to be designed which is attractive to a particular target in the segment. So I'll give you an example later, and we'll work on it. So the product has to have certain attributes. A typical product has a core, basic and augmented attributes, which are utilized by the company, the marketer, to enhance certain features of the core product. So for example, a core need is that you are thirsty. So when you are thirsty, you can drink water, you can drink beer, you can drink milk, you can drink all kinds of things. So it actually, so from the need of thirst, fulfilling your thirst, you converted it into a want by enhancing it. And one of the most important parts of enhancing a product is the brand. So when you brand a product, it has an identity of its own, and that particular identity of the product is what sticks in the consumer's mind. So that is the product part. The product itself has many other features which we can talk about later. Second and most important, once the product has been targeted to a particular segment, then we have to decide how will you price it, because there is a direct connection between the quality of the product and the positioning of the product and the price. So then we come to the price. The third comes the actual positioning of the product in the consumer's mind. That positioning of the product in the consumer's mind takes through marketing communications. So then there's integrated marketing communications now, there is integrated digital marketing now. All these methodologies are used to actually create an image of the product in the consumer's mind. And once you do these 3 activities, then you have to really ensure that the product is available in the market. That's where the place or distribution comes into play. And usually when a campaign starts, the company has to make sure that as soon as the campaign has been launched, the product is available in the appropriate outlets for purchase by the consumer, because your campaign would have elicited enough response.
So kind of building on what we have talked about, and it's your one of your interest area also is the whole SUV segment. So how can we use Thar as an example to explain positioning and leading on to the 4Ps?
Before we get into that, I'd like to let the audience know that I was the first professor in IBSG in the year 2005 to first buy an SUV and bring it on campus, and it was quite an event. But now there are all kinds of SUVs in our car park. So it's become now kind of an egalitarian concept.
So why do you think the SUV segment has grown so dramatically? And
yeah, it's very interesting. When the SUVs first came out, it was seen as a product for rough and ready, rugged individuals who are outdoorish, etc. So I had bought a Scorpio at that time, and most of the SUVs at that time were limitedly owned by people who had this kind of an inclination. However, now we have seen in the automobile market that there's been a great transition of movement away of the SUV from a kind of outdoor rugged vehicle to now becoming very much a family vehicle. Today, in fact, while coming here, I saw a lady driving a Thar Rox, which is the latest version of the Mahindra Thar, with all her children sitting in the vehicle. So what you are now seeing is the democratization of the SUV.
so if we use the 4Ps to kind of explain the success of Thar and then positioning to explain why Thar Rox has been launched, how would you kind of explain that?
The Thar itself is quite a unique vehicle in the Indian context, because first of all, Mahindra's claim that only SUVs are manufactured by them, which is called the 3-box model. The other ones are the so-called SUVs are all basically built on car chassis, and they are actually called themselves SUV. But Mahindra vehicles are truly SUVs. So they came out originally with something called the Bolero, which was supposed to be the rugged vehicle, and then they felt that it is now the time has come to have a more refined vehicle, and so they imagined the Thar, and they came out with Thar 2-door, and essentially as a 4-wheel drive. Now, what happened then was that suddenly, when this vehicle came onto the market, there was an explosion in demand by urban population to drive the Thar in urban areas. So that is a very interesting evolution in the SUV market.
So we got the product part covered, which is basically about the attributes and features that you talked about. How did it do on the pricing thing? What was the pricing strategy that they kind of followed?
They actually got the pricing right. In fact, if I talk about how Mahindras do their pricing, is very, very interesting. When the Scorpio first came out, they said that we will decide what the price is first, and then we'll work backwards to design a car which fits that price. So in the year 2004, they decided that they will launch a SUV in the Indian market for 6 lakh rupees.
So identifying a price point,
yeah,
which would be suitable for the consumer, and then
building a product, reverse engineer the product to make a product available at 6 lakhs. Mahindras are very good at that. They did exactly with same thing with the Thar also. I think the range they were looking at is between 10 to 12 lakhs to begin with, and to reverse engineer in such a way that they can produce a profitable product and launch it in the market, and that was the Thar, the 2-door Thar.
So in terms of promotion, what was the approach? I mean, did they use traditional media, or did they use innovation in terms of communicating the product to the consumer?
They use both, but Mahindra always have been very, very keen on non-digital formats. They've gone for the traditional media, and all their advertising has been built around this whole thing about be young, break free, that kind of themes, and also showing that this vehicle, when it gets stuck in mud and all that, you can actually off-road kind of situation. That was a positioning. But that positioning had to change. And that's when this big transition took place, where they realized that there was this huge market. Sometimes the waiting list, one of my friends bought it, the waiting list was almost 2 years.
Now that's kind of interesting. Huh? That just goes to show that if you are able to identify a good need and create a product which serves that need and position it adequately, you can have a pretty successful brand on your hands.
Professor, both of us are professors of strategy, so you will remember the famous strategy about intended and emergent strategies. I don't think Mahindra intended this to be a mass SUV kind of a product. It emerged like the old Honda case which we teach in class. If you remember the Honda case, that they looked for one vehicle and another vehicle came onto the market. I think this is exactly what happened. It was more serendipity than very strategic thinking.
Which I think, and I guess we don't want to go into the direction of strategy, but generally that's how it happens, is that kind of you try something. So kind of to finish off with the last P, which is placement, how do they generally distribute or...
The distribution, they have not set up any separate, though Mahindra now are distinguishing between what they call performance vehicles and utility vehicles. So you'll find that a lot of dealers, even here in Gurgaon, you'll find them selling the lower end, for example, Bolero and vehicles like that, tractors and all that, which are more for the rural areas. But the higher end vehicles like XUV 300, 500, 700, and also the SUVs and Thar, they are being sold by a different distributor.
Okay.
So it's a positioning.
Okay. So I think that kind of gives a good overview of segmentation, targeting, differentiation, positioning, and also how the 4 Ps. So in kind of conclusion, I guess one thing that we can say is 4 Ps is still very relevant.
Very relevant.
You need to ensure that you start with your positioning and then you create your 4 Ps accordingly, and then make sure all 4 Ps are lined up so that you don't mess up on that. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, and I hope you kind of you all enjoyed this particular session, and
you will join us for our future sessions. We are planning the next one. We are planning is the difference between marketing and selling.
Okay. Thank you.